I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.
Yeah.
Well, Maria, I think it's a paradigm shift. You know as well as I do, work restores dignity. Work brings pride. You know, and our welfare system deviated from what it was intended to be from its origin. It was intended for the most vulnerable, to the most needy in our country. But now we've created welfare as a lifestyle in our country. And you know, America is not a welfare state. America is a country of opportunity and a country of entrepreneurship. And so this will help us to encourage able-bodied people in America that are receiving government subsidies to work. You know, there was a study that came out, almost 50% of households that are receiving HUD funds, almost 50%, not one person in that household is working. And that has to change. That culture, that paradigm has to change. And HUD, this is common sense compassion. We want to help people and invigorate and encourage people to work, able-bodied people to work. We're not talking about the elderly. We're not talking about those that are disabled. Able-bodied, able-minded people that are receiving HUD funding should go to work to restore dignity, Maria.
Whoa. Now this is we're going to use a man by the name of the Black Conservative Perspective. I love his channel. You should follow it on YouTube. This is what he just got done saying. What Turner is saying is that he made a mistake. Yes, there should be assistance for people that are disabled. But what he's also saying was able body and able mental. Let's remove that mental thing right goddamn now. Because there are too many people that are able body that are going to claim to have a mental illness because they want to curtail ever having to work. Especially if you're consider yourself African American. To say you're from Africa, but you've never been there, that's already a sign of a mental illness. If you refer to yourself as a color instead of a nationality or an ethnicity, that's also a sign of mental illness. People are going to start to claim that trauma from slavery that they never personally experienced or went through generates a mental illness, and they have to take medication for anxiety and they can't work anywhere. And that's going to be their angle. Please do not give them that out. Stick to what you're saying. Able-bodied people need to work. We have an entire welfare class. It's not just a problem. It's a class of people that completely fill up the Democrat voter rolls in all of our major cities. If people weren't on welfare, they would never vote Democrat. The only reason they vote, the only thing that makes them a Democrat is they feel that Black people should be able to receive government assistance for free. If you ask anyone, what makes you still think you're a Democrat? They say weird things to me like, well, I'm a card-carrying Democrat from the 80s, but the only thing that they agree with when it comes to Democrats is welfare for Black people. They don't believe in welfare for whites or even for illegals. They only think it's only for Black people. They feel that if they show that they're compassionate for Black people, when Black people say that life's so hard for them, then that means they're a good person. It's a virtue signal, but it really isn't. What you're doing is you're enabling them, and you've completely destroyed the Black family. We're going to go through this video, but the reason why there are no more Black families is because if you give a woman, especially a Black woman, the opportunity to not have to listen or be accountable to anyone and to get money for free, she's going to take it. But that's most women in general. Women don't want to work. That's why when, women fought through suffrage so that they could get the right to work, a lot of women were like, what are you guys doing? We don't really want to work. But you know what? Men and women now are equal. And there is no putting that back. There's no putting that back in the bag. That's going to be how it is going forward. Women and men are equal. You cannot feel sorry for women just because they're a mother. To be honest, being a single mother is a choice. Now, we're not talking about the women that were married and then the husband dies in a line of duty or he's in a car accident. We're talking about the women who don't even know who the father of their child is when they get pregnant. And there was never a man making his commitment to you and the child to begin with. Women feel comfortable doing that because the state will reward you with money and enable you. People are going to have to go homeless and people are going to have to go hungry before things get right. Now, they're going to want to play chicken with you. They're going to play chicken. They're definitely going to say, you know what? If you don't feed us, then we won't eat and we're going to starve. And if you won't give us housing, then we're going to be homeless. And you have to be able to look them in the eyes and say, well, then so be it. That's your choice. Now, the United States is a republic, but we're also a capitalist society. This is not socialism. If you want to live under socialism, the United States is the wrong country for you to live in, and you should probably look into moving to Europe. There are housing councils in the UK. We have them in Germany. Canada also has socialist programs for people from other countries that want to come there and not work. And what they do is they have a working class that they tax the hell out of to support the socialists. The United States is not doing that. We've done it for about 40 years. We've done it since the 70s. We're not doing it anymore. It doesn't make sense. The people are ungrateful and they've taken advantage of it, and those days have to end. But this is a really well said video, so we're gonna go through it.
Maria, you get up early in the morning and you work, you serve. And so we want to give other people and encourage others the same opportunity. And so this is a great step forward, working with our colleagues at agriculture and also Health and Human Services and Dr. Oz to be kind of a catalyst to change the trajectory of the lives of people in our country.
I think it's a great point that you make, Secretary.
Boy. So we got to talk about President Trump making the Black community great again, right? Because I really do believe he has done a pretty decent job of that thus far in his administration, mainly from the mass deportations. Because as I've stressed over and over again, Black people are going to benefit heavily from deporting the illegal immigrants, especially young Black men.
I'll be honest with you. I know Black men that have told me that they've never been able to walk up to a construction site and get a job in their entire life. And I know a guy that said he was walking by a construction site and a foreman stopped him and offered him a job because of his size, because there are so many less illegals taking jobs from American workers. So when they talk about Black jobs, those are Black jobs that would have normally went to a Black person or a white person or just an American in general. I hate this whole color situation. If you're an American, you're an American. Calling yourself a color, that you're not even a human, you're a color. And that's according to the United Nations. But there are people I've met that have never been able to work at a construction site because there were always illegals there. I'll be honest with you. I'm feeling the hurt. I have cleaning teams and I have staff that used to work for me and do amazing work that have self-deported. They're back in Guatemala now. They're sending me referrals to other people that they know, but no one's going to be as good as them. But these people were here 15 years and do not speak English. I have relatives that refuse to learn English and have been here 20 years plus. And guess what? They're going to eventually be deported. If you don't, the way you show that you want to assimilate in the United States when you get here and that you appreciate the country is you do what you can so that you can gain your citizenship while you're here. The reason they don't want to go do that is because they don't want to go to school to learn English. They don't want to learn about the Constitution or how the United States works. And they just want to, and we stay in our own communities around each other and we don't assimilate. There's no such thing as you go into another country, but you don't want to assimilate. You want to bring your own values and your own customs that you're leaving to the United. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, if you don't want to learn the language and you don't want to be a part of the American society, then don't come here. But again, these are people now that have never been able to get these types of jobs, and now they have access to them, which is a great thing.
Because illegal immigrants compete with young Black men for jobs, and I love to see the mass deportations for that reason. Okay, and we have another alleged Trump proposal that I think is going to be great for the Black community, which is to cut back on the welfare and the government cheese. Right? The fact is that
yes. Cutting back on welfare. I don't know if you guys knows what this means, but this means that we're walking into the end of the strong, independent woman, her era is over. The reason that these women call themselves strong and independent is because they don't see the government as a man. They see the government as a god. And they think that God gives them money every single month out of thin air, and they don't have to do anything for it. And that's who their rich baby daddy is the government. They can talk crazy to men, and they don't have to be mothers, and they don't have to be wives, because the government will take care of them. If you're getting rid of Section 8 and you're cutting down on welfare, then these women who claim to be strong and independent because she lives alone, because she's on welfare, and you can't have a man living there in the first place. So the fact that you have your own place alone with your kids, that's what gave you the idea that you're actually a strong and independent woman, because you live alone. But you only live alone because the government mandates that no man can live in your household with you, which means you're having children out of wedlock and there is no family. You know, you could just decide to work and actually make sure your children's father is with you, and you could work things out with him and work together. That's how it used to be in this country before the 70s or into the 70s. If you didn't have a husband or a man that was bringing in money that you were with, then you guys would go hungry and go without. But then when the government stepped in, they told you that the man can't come in there. Now, this was by design to destroy the black family. The problem is, destroying the black community is actually the country itself is being destroyed by the black community before the black community can implode on itself. Now, that was always a race against time to see which one is going to collapse first. And it was a gamble. What if the black community collapsed on itself and they started to self-deport back to Africa or to other countries, or they just all starved to death? I guess that's kind of what the plan was. But now, because they've been enabled, well, now they're just running amok, and the country's being destroyed by thread every day. And this community, which is actually enabled by the government, is actually one of the biggest thorns in the side of the government. They create a lot of the largest problems that we're having. Single familyness, being a single mother, no father, fatherless homes is what's creating a lot of the criminals. The criminals are creating a lot of the crimes. The crimes are happening in our blue cities, which is destroying property values and making life unlivable. So people are having to move away. However, the American public is now noticing that there's a pattern. There's patterns between different groups of people. There's patterns with people from Israel. And now there's also patterns with people from Latin America. And also, if you're black in America, there is a pattern. A lot of people now are saying segregation is actually not a bad thing. We want to get away from them. We show different values. Me personally, I don't want to live next door to a family that's on Section 8 and welfare. The odds are higher for them to be committing crimes, and I don't want to live next to that. I don't want, though we live different lifestyles. I get up to go to work every day, and they're at home waiting for me to go to work so they can break into my house. They should be going to work too. Everybody should be working to support themselves. Black men in America understand this. It's sink or swim. And if you don't want to swim, you can go to prison. In prison, it's pure socialism. 3 hots in the cot. You get free food and you get free housing. You don't got to pay any bills. That's a socialist lifestyle. But for women, they can do that, except they can do it on the outside. They get free meals and they get free housing. If you're telling somebody you get a $1,500 a month apartment for $38, that's free freaking housing. No wonder they got disposable income while everybody else is struggling over here. No wonder they think they're strong and independent. They don't have to pay for shit. And that has to end. That has to end right now, and it is.
Bring in the less rental assistance that you get, so people would just rather not work and get the government money rather than to work and dig themselves out of poverty, right? So instead of providing aid at the federal level, the budget proposes creating a grant program to send rental assistance funds to states. It would terminate many federal regulations, incentivize states and the private sector to provide affordable housing, and work in tandem with the efforts to open public lands to development. Quote, the budget empowers states by transforming the current federal dysfunctional rental assistance program into a state-based formula grant, which would allow states to design their own rental assistance programs based on their unique needs and preferences, the budget reads. In tandem with this program, the Trump administration would impose a 2-year limit on rental assistance for adults without disabilities. The budget document states that this would direct a majority of rental assistance to elderly and disabled tenants. The proposed budget does include a $25 million in housing grants for youth aging out of foster.
So that makes sense. Disabled people, senior citizens, and children that are coming out of foster care that don't have parents. They're going to need housing for the first couple of years. People that are elderly or handicapped, they're going to need housing indefinitely. Everyone in between that is on their own. If you don't want to work, the United States is not the country for you. Just because you were born here does not mean you're entitled to free shit. Also, the Trump administration owes you nothing. The majority of the people that are on welfare did not vote for Trump. They're socialists. They're communists. Because of that, they must be purged. There is no sympathy for them. And because you were disloyal, no one cares about how you feel or what you say. You can get on the internet and cry all you want on TikTok and on Instagram and Facebook. At the end of the day, living in the United States is a choice, and you can choose to live somewhere else. But you're going to have to work now if you want to stay in the U.S. Or you're going to just be without. You're going to be homeless. You're going to be on the streets. No more pretending that you're rich. No more pretending that you're a strong, independent woman and you don't need no man. Yes, you do, because men work and women don't want to work. Women will work, and women now have to go 50-50 with men, or men are not letting them live with them. I've had 3 women I've been dating over the past couple of 2 years, for example, that have come to me and said, hey, Rico, I got to move out of my place. I've been dealing with you, can I move in here for a couple of months? And I'm like, I don't know. We've hung out and we've been dating and whatever, but you never just walk around here and just automatically clean up. I have a maid. I've never seen you make any food for me because I have a chef that comes over twice a week. So what can you really offer me? The sex is mutual. You're getting some of this good Rico. I'm getting some, we're evenly killed on that. So that's not, so unless you can afford 50% of the bills, no, this isn't going to work. And I've had some that have said, okay, look, I can afford this much a month. And I'm like, that's not enough. If you want to live here in a luxury house and you want to be, unless you're making, you might got to get a second job, but you're going to have to go pay 100% by yourself or 50% with me, or we're not going to do it. I'm not moving you in. So she's on her own. You're going to have to figure out how to get along better with men. People need each other. That's the whole reason why you have a family. Men need women. Women need men, but women need men more than men need women. Men are already hardwired to work, and the ones who are not are in prison. So you don't have, so they're off the table anyway. You can't even consider them because they're in jail. But for those of us on the outside, we have to work every day. As a woman now, we have to also increase our standards. We understand that leaving a woman at home and making sure she doesn't have to work, idle hands is a devil's workshop. All they do is cheat and lie, and then they save up their money and they use that savings to catapult away from you at your expense with your kids. And if they get you for child support or alimony, you have to now pay for her new lifestyle without you. That's the new hustle. These women want to live like married women without the husband. Do not become her hustle. Be better than that. If you're younger, if you're young enough and you haven't made that mistake yet, don't do it. It's not worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, my friend.
Care. Yeah. So what we have here is a more lean housing plan where you have the majority of the recipients being people who actually need it, right? Again, the elderly and the disabled. So don't fall for the propaganda that's going to be put out there where people are going to say, oh, Trump is cutting rental assistance for disabled and elderly people. That's actually not what's happening. If anything, they may actually get more money because you're going to have people who are able-bodied who can actually work. They're going to be getting less money, right? So I'm just saying that the propaganda here for this is going to be strong. And we have people on the internet freaking out, mainly black folks, to be honest with you, okay? Because there are a lot of people some of the pro-blacks will come out and say, well, more white people, rental assistance than black people, right? This is what they'll say, except when they actually look at the makeup of the people who actually, receive the vouchers, 45% of these voucher recipients are black, and black people only 13% of the
40-fucking-9%. You know how many black people come to me and say, but Rico, black people, it's more white people on welfare than black. Shut the fuck. For one thing, there's 8 times more white people in the country. There should be more white people on the system, but yet it's 50-50 with blacks and everybody. If blacks make up 49%, then the other 50, 40, 50, whatever 1% is literally all other races, Asian, Latino, fucking people from the islands, people from Tonga and Samoa, Native American. That means everybody else gets one half, and an entire other 49% is from black people. Are you fucking kidding me? This is unreal. Like, this is the most unreal thing that I've ever heard of. And people want to pretend like it's even. Oh, it's even Steven. Those people do this, those people do that, and completely don't want to focus on themselves at all. And I'm just glad that this is wonderful. This is wonderful for men. Yeah, you don't necessarily want to be with a woman who she's only with you because of her situation, but that's life. People get into situations to survive. That's just life. You can't do nothing about that. Yeah, you might meet a woman, and for the reason you guys are together is because she's like, you know what? He's not that funny, he's not that good looking, but guess what? He has a good job. Is she using you, or is she just saying, you know what, this guy would make a better partner? People, you're not really dating for love. You're not supposed to date for love. Dating for love is a luxury. You're supposed to date for resources. You're supposed to get married for resources and a family, not because you're always happy with this person. Happiness and love are two fleeting emotions, just like hunger. I was hungry when I woke up this morning. I went and ate a couple of tacos. I'm no longer hungry for a while. Love is like that too. You yearn for love. You yearn for to be in a relationship. As soon as you get in one, you're like looking at the shape of her feet and like, man, is her toe weird, or am I crazy? Because you're looking for a way to get out of it, because relationships and love are a big responsibility. And you don't really want extra responsibilities if you don't need to have one. But then if that person leaves, you break down because it's a fleeting emotion. Sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't. It makes more sense and it's more stable if you are getting into relationships based on a partnership and how we need each other for our resources and our ability to provide for one another. I tell people the most successful families in this country, you think is because you're black and they're white. No, it's because white women work. When you go into businesses, when you go into establishments, there's a white woman that has 3 or 4 kids working there too. They don't get pregnant and think, okay, it's time for me to retire because I have a kid, so the man should pay me plus the government. And that's what a lot of people have been doing. They get pregnant and they retire. They think having a child is a handicap. Oh, it's too expensive. You got to think about these things. That's the part of being a responsible adult. You got to consider all the expenses before you get into certain situations. Kids are one of them. This right here will remove basically the safety net that is literally driving people into not taking care of themselves. We're calling it a welfare rollback. It's a massive reduction to Section 8 and housing subsidies. That means you are going to have to work to subsidize yourself. The strong, independent woman illusion is vanished. It's going to be gone this year. Just like the illusion that Canada is a strong, independent country that can defend itself. That's all a lie too. Without America subsidizing the Canadian economy for $200 million, they are weak, defenseless, and they have nothing. Matter of fact, they're going to have to, just like these women, Once they lose their Section 8 housing and their welfare, they're gonna have to go back to their baby daddy and ask if she can move back in. These women are gonna be begging for a kitchen to get into. They're gonna be begging men to say, please let me into your kitchen. Canada in the next 90 days is going to be begging to be one of our states. And even in their whole economy is basically the size of maybe not even Illinois, I would say Pennsylvania. Just like the Canadians were talking about how they're a strong, independent country, that's how these women are. And the Canadians are going to have to become one of our low-level states, and women are going to have to beg to go back into a kitchen for a man that works. And she's going to have to work as well. No more free rides, no more just being able to scam forever. That's ridiculous. And it needs to stop because families need to come back together. A lot of men have not had sex because, for one, it's like this big thing about being virgins because dealing with women is too complicated. Men see what women say on the internet. They don't want to deal with it no more. A lot of men are not getting into relationships because it's transactional. That's going to change too. The luxury of being being a prostitute is a luxury too, because times have to be good. People have to have disposable income, and there has to be a desire for your services. That's, even though it's the oldest profession, once men start having women that want to partner up and be with them at home, I think OnlyFans and a lot of that stuff is going to dry up because the culture is going to shift too far right for those things to even be necessary anymore. I mean, they weren't necessary 30 years ago, and they've become more necessary now the further away from families we have become. But without that, I do see those industries going down.
Population. So black people disproportionately receive the welfare and housing subsidies, right? That's just the reality, right? That's just the facts, which is why when you go on TikTok, okay, and you look up Section 8 housing and what people are saying about it, a vast majority of the people who are freaking out about this, who are concerned about this, are black. Take a look.
The Trump administration's 2025 budget proposal aims to slash.
And you know what's crazy about her? She doesn't even look black, but she's adding an extra twang to herself so that the actual dark-skinned blacks will accept her. Because it's cold when you're not in the cult. And then you're out there alone and you want to have camaraderie. But it's weird to look at someone that looks like her. And this is just an act, kind of like Jasmine Crockett, where they put on these roles to pretend that they're like extra black. It's ridiculous, but that's besides the point. Let's hear it. Let's see who's really complaining about this.
Section 8 and rental assistance by up to 40%, shifting the burden to states
49%.
using block grants.
Yeah, that's right. And what that mean? What does that mean in the real world? Cities like San Francisco estimate that over 1,900 people could lose their home. Public housing authorities like New York, Phoenix warn of increased evictions, overcrowding, and homelessness.
Yep.
And it looks like this is primarily going to only be affecting the black community. And guess what? The black community overall did not vote for Trump. So who gives a fuck? I know I don't. At all. At all. You guys voted for a communist. You voted for socialism. You didn't get it. Well, then understand this. This United States will no longer be welcoming to people who do not appreciate the republic and what our Constitution stands for. You know, I tell people, my family, again, I'm from a communist country. When we came to the United States for freedom, it wasn't for freedom to, you know, be a man and dress as a woman or the freedom to come over here and just do whatever I want without consequence. No, when you're from another country and you come to the US for freedom, it's for freedom to work. See, in other countries, you don't have an economy where you can go and work, and based on how hard you work or how much you work, you can excel past others. It's what Kamala was called equity, where that means that everyone's equally poor. We all get the same voucher. The voucher is all good for the same 3 items at the grocery store, and it's given out to you like rations. when you talk about the black community, everybody in the black community, I've never heard anybody that wasn't black brag and reminisce about government cheese. Don't know why people love to talk about how much government cheese and all. What the fuck do you know? That's Cuba. That's my country. That's what you get. Government cheese, government milk, and government chicken, government meat. And you got to ration it out for the next 7 days, and then that's when your voucher is good again. You have to get out of that mindset. You are no longer a slave. You can work. It might not be where you want to work, but you do what you can until you can do better. That's how it works. It has to work like that. If not, you don't have a country. You don't have a society. There's two ways that you're going to learn: the easy way or the hard way. But know this: living in the United States is a luxury, but it's also optional. You can choose to go to another country where they will just take care of you forever. Canada is one of those countries. The UK is one of those countries. And unfortunately, Germany is turning into one of those countries. So you don't have to live in the States, and the luxury of living here is going to cost you. You can't just live here for free anymore.
And you got Section 8. You're not just slashing numbers.
Uh-huh.
You're slashing lives, futures, kids' access to education, and safety.
How much education did a kid really have if they grew up to be on welfare in Section fucking 8 anyway? Because think about it. If it started in the 70s, then that means your parents grew up to be on welfare, and so did their fucking kids. So this education you're talking about, it kind of skips over people that are socialists and communists. Because why would you need to learn? What do you need to learn a skill for? You can just live off the government. What do you need to work hard for? What do you need to study for? Matter of fact, what are you even going to school for? If you went to a school and the degree that you graduated with does not transform into a income from a position at a job that can afford to pay for it, did it really do you any good? And the answer is hell no, it didn't. It was a waste. DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, is the whole name of this term is going to be getting rid of all types of waste. Expect the waste to be dealt away with.
And this ain't just a theory. These are real life consequences that will happen once this program has been slashed. So let me
Consequences for who?
get this straight. The guy with gold toilets wants to end Section 8. So
Yeah, what does his gold toilets have to do with your porcelain toilet? He does not have to pay for it, neither do I. It's not about Trump. The people are tired of subsidizing your income. And then you guys call us racist anyway. We're tired of it, and we're not doing it anymore. You are going to have to learn how to work, you bald head demon.
Trump administration is now floating the idea of cutting Section 8.
It's not being floated. It's incoming policy. Prepare.
You know, the program that keeps grandma from living in her car.
Grandma is a senior citizen. She would be exempt. So would your mentally ill or physically handicapped cousin, but not you. Just because you're bald and you're evil doesn't mean that you are not incapable of working to support yourself. That's not the case.
Or a mother with children living in a shelter. But wait, Billy?
If she lives in a shelter, then Section 8 hasn't been for her anyway. And also, you shouldn't be a mother in a shelter. How did you become a mother? Sex is optional, especially when you have multiple kids. That means you had all types of sex. Stop having as much sex unprotected. Stop getting yourself pregnant, thinking the government's going to save you, and playing on the heartstrings of white Americans who outnumber you, who you also say that you hate. They just brought over 59 white people from South Africa, and the black community is evil and talking about how they should have been left to die and killed by that dictator in South Africa, which is ridiculous. So you expect these people to now want to feel sorry for you and you're evil and you're calling for their destruction and their death every week and every day? You supported Carmelo. The only reason you had enough money to send to Carmelo's GoFundMe is because of Section 8 and welfare. I'm glad we're cutting off the head of the snake right now.
Millionaires get tax breaks the size of Texas, and that's all cool. But helping people afford a one-bedroom, socialism. This ain't about budgets, y'all. It's about punishment.
Yes, you should be punished for leaving your husband. You should be punished for leaving the father of your children and thinking that you can get the government to put him on child support, or if he loves you enough to marry you, thinking that the government can force him to pay alimony and you can just go live a separate lifestyle at his expense and at the government expense combined. Stay with your husband. Keep your family together. Why do you want to why do you want to destroy your family so bad? It's crazy. A man will sacrifice his happiness for his family, but a woman will sacrifice her family for her happiness. Never forget that equation.
Nothing says make America great again, like making the poor homeless and building more golf courses at Mar-a-Lago.
Golf courses are for people who can afford them, people who work. And for you, you think that that's like some odd thing. No, most people work. They're figuring out something to do. They're not just completely leaning on the government. As a man, I don't have that option. Men have to work. Women and men are now equal. You guys can drive, you can vote. This is not suffrage anymore. You as a woman, if you're strong and independent, working is going to be a piece of cake. Not being able to lean on the government or lean on a man that you're not no longer with is just not going to be an option. You know, what are you going to do? Do you think this is it? Do you think getting rid of Section 8 and welfare is where it's going to stop? Oh, no. Child support and alimony will be abolished. I'm thinking in the next year. They have to be, because the birth rates are in the gutter, except for the community that is subsidized by the government to have children out of wedlock, and they'll give you benefits if there is no man in the home. For the rest of the communities, that's not an option. We have to get this country back on track. Marriage rates are going to go up once alimony is no longer a thing. Once men don't need a prenup to protect ourselves from women, we will happily get married. Once child support is not a thing where you got to have to worry about them taking away your license and your passport, people will start having children again. Right now, men are abstaining from it. Women are on the internet talking about, where are all the men? They're on dating shows. They're on Pop the Balloon. They're going to, meetups for speed dating. And you know what they say? There's no men here. Why would a man go there? For what? Who wants to go somewhere where they're going to charge him pretty much to be there? You're at the bar at one of these events and you buy one drink, you turn around, all these thirsty ass women waiting for you. Guess what they're waiting for you to do? Pay for their drinks. I'm not paying for shit for you. Pay for yourself. We are even. Men and women are equal. You guys have been screaming it for all these years. We finally hear you. As my equal, you will take care of yourself. You will contribute. This whole gravy train is about to be up. The Section 8 and welfare is just the beginning. Child support and alimony are next. For one thing, child support is fraud anyway. It's fraud. Alimony is unconstitutional. Just like Biden offering to pay your student loans was unconstitutional and illegal. All this stuff is going to have to be cut away. You're going to have to learn how to you have to learn how to take care of yourself, or get along with men. Keep your family together. Stop running away on your baby daddy or running off on your husband because you don't like something. That's a luxury. You need that man, and there's no other man coming. Think about it. The last time she went through a breakup was probably, let's look at her face, 10 years ago. She hasn't been in a relationship since. In these women's minds, there's a billionaire waiting for them around the corner, and the dude she's with at the moment is just holding her back. They're wrong.
And cherry on top is some of you are actually out here cheering this on, like you ain't got a voucher in your cousin's name.
I don't have a voucher in my cousin's name, and I'm cheering this on. Absolutely.
And a P.O. box in your aunt's zip code.
I don't have a P.O. box in my aunt's zip code.
Be serious.
I am serious.
Should your landlord be a politician too? Or should we start actually voting like housing matters? Because rich people ain't playing.
Who's rich people? You got to ask that question. And the truth is, rich people are basically anybody who works. People who don't work think that anyone with a job is rich. Remember the commercials of McDonald's a long time ago? Remember Calvin? To her, Calvin is rich because he has a job at McDonald's. Calvin is rich. And remember, this is also the class of people that make fun of if you're black and you have a job and your boss is white. These are the same black people that say, oh, yeah, you got a master. You're a slave. So the notion of them going to get jobs is something that they're going to have to get over. It's going to take time. But let me tell you, when that stomach starts growling and that rain starts and it gets cold on that ass, you're going to get over yourself and go figure out where you can work. Or you're going to find a man that you can leech off of, but at least he'll have a kitchen for you to go into. And the terms are going to be, you're going to have to cook, you're going to have to clean. If I have kids, you have to take care of my kids. You're basically going to be a woman. You're going to be a caregiver at home, or you're going to go get a motherfucking job. You're not going to be able to live off the government and my tax dollars anymore. I don't understand how much more clear this is going to have to be.
They want everything.
This administration is proposing about 40% cuts to Section 8 housing vouchers. Look,
you didn't vote for this administration, so fuck you. Of course, we are going to raise all that up.
what does that mean for you? Maybe you don't get subsidized housing, so you think that doesn't matter.
You know what's crazy? Me and my friends couldn't get Section 8. We wish we could, but the list is so long and the line is so long, we couldn't even get on Section 8 if we wanted to. That's not fair. Either everybody gets a 2-year head start, where for 2 years you get government assistance, and then after 2 years you can save up for 2 years, and then you start paying your rent in 2 years. Either everybody has access or nobody. This whole only giving it to people that show up early and been in the line waiting, and their mom and their cousin can pass. Man, fuck, that's not even fair. How is that equitable? Get the fuck out of here. Shit, I wish I could have found somebody. Man, I would have been on set. What? I would have loved Section 8 if I could have got on there. But I would have still made this video because fuck that. It's still the women have Section 8 and they tell their men to go fuck themselves, and they take the children from their dads because you don't have to get along with them. I got Section 8. What do I need a man for? That's crazy. I'm pro-man. I want men to have equality and rights to their children and to not get robbed. So I'm coming from a pro-man perspective. To hell with these other women.
But it does. It always matters because Section 8 will also provide funds to developers to build housing specifically for subsidized tenants.
No, the state typically forces a builder to allocate 10% of their units that they're creating to be for low-income housing so they can qualify for state grants. That incentivizes, again, for people to be on state assistance. And we're trying to get people away from state assistance, so they need to get rid of that. Again, for people coming out of, if you're like in foster care, if you're mentally disabled, if you're in senior citizen that's elderly and you've paid your debt to society, but you know what, you're going to still need help with housing, that is going to be protected. Everyone in between, all these grown ass adults that just hang around in these hoods and these projects and just spend all day fighting each other and shooting each other, you're going to have to go to work. You're not going to have time to fight and shoot. You're going to be too tired. And when you get off, you're going to want to live somewhere nice. You're going to get tired of seeing people who don't give a damn, because you're going to want to see something, investment, a return on your investment, because that's where you live. This is going to change the attitudes of these people, because once you're hungry, you're going to figure something out. People have to get hungry again.
That means, whether it's an apartment community, single family, duplex, fourplex, like those are funds. They said, oh, look, we're just going to send it back to the states, which essentially means we're going to leave you guys high and dry. And if you have a state that is fiscally responsible, great, good for you. I do not. I live in Mississippi, and our state is infamous for misallocating funds, stealing funds. We let people literally run amok. Oh, and we just passed legislation this past legislative session to eliminate the income tax. We are already subsidized at one of the highest rates by the federal government. They are eliminating FEMA. Like y'all gotta look at the budget proposals, because some people are saying, "Oh, this will be good because if we get all those, Section 8 tenants out in the housing market, the prices will change." Y'all,
for one thing, it doesn't make any sense to take financial advice from somebody who's poor. Why would a person who's on welfare in Section 8 give me or give you financial advice and tell you how things work in the economy. Bitch, how would you know? you're poor. How do you know? If you knew if you have this much knowledge and information, you would be doing better. But you're not, because you're full of shit. What you're trying to do is justify why life should be free for you, because it's not even a racial thing. It's a gender thing. Women don't want to work. This was her play, because guess what? She couldn't finesse a man to marry her. And she probably couldn't get very many kids out of another man that had a job. So, and then there's no man around for you to accuse of abuse so that you can get a check. So now you have to accuse the government. The government is not a person. It's an entity. It's actually a corporation. You can't really blame the government for anything. The government's not a person. But you're sitting here giving advice and saying, well, the housing market, how would you know? You don't own a home. You're not actually a part of you're not even a part of the economy. You are actually a child. You're an infant. And the government and the rest of society are your parents. And we feed you and we clothe you and we cover you with a roof. But guess what? The way things are going now, you are going to turn 18, whether you want to or not. You're going to be kicked out, or you're going to have to learn how to sink or swim, or you're going to move to another country that has socialism. Now, there's somebody I know, Tay Love 22. I do know her. She said, do you even know anybody on Section 8? And actually, I said no. And then I just remembered. I actually did. And guess what? It was a woman who pretended she owned all these different businesses and she was successful in this and this. And it turns out she was really just scamming. And she was on Section 8. So no wonder she had disposable income. But she never had a man. But she always had these kids. I was like, is this bitch like a gremlin? Like, you poured somebody spilled some water on her back and babies pop out? Like, where do the kids come from if there's no man around? I knew her for like 4 or 5 years. Multiple kids, never seen a man. So I was like, is she like, I don't know, like, what do they call, like, asexual? Like, she can impregnate herself? Is she the Virgin Mary? How do you, like you get, you like, where are these kids coming from? But it's because she wasn't allowed to have their fathers around, and she didn't want them around. She wanted the kids so that she could get more money. So basically, this was her hustle. This was her job. And essentially, somebody like me talking to people in layman's terms is me knocking her hustle. And what do people hate that you do? Knock their hustle. So yes, I did know somebody on Section 8, and that's how I'm speaking from experience. I didn't appreciate how she was talking about men and putting herself up there like she's better or she's more than. I didn't like it. And then when I found out why she was doing it, I was like, huh. But I didn't really have a platform where I could talk about it, but I'm doing it now. So I'm glad you brought that up, Tay.
Like, there's so much nuance in this. What is going to happen is those people are going to have to leave.
There you go. So look, there's 30 flights a day on average international that go to Africa. Airplanes hold about 200 people. Well, let's say 100. It depends on the size of the jet. There's about 100. So you can roughly evacuate 10,000 Black people a day to Africa. In Africa, it's a lot cheaper. And the government in Ghana is willing to repatriate people and give them land and help them get started. If help is what you need because you don't want to work here. Over there, I'm not sure how much work you're going to have to do. I do know in Canada, they do have subsidies. And in the UK, there is a housing council. But I'm not sure the details on how long you can stay on it. But I do know they do have socialism there. If you're losing your socialism in the United States, you can go to another country, but you just won't be able to do it here. So instead of starving or instead of committing a crime and going to prison, why not just go to another country and save yourself and your family and do something else? Again, for men, prison makes sense because, it's socialism, free housing, and free food. For women, I don't know because I don't know. I don't know if women look at it the same, but I mean, women want their cake and eat it too. They don't want to work, but they want all the benefits that you get from being a hardworking woman. So that's something that's going to have to get broken down. And I'm just talking about it now, but other people are going to talk about it.
And where will they go? There are no programs. Federal funding has been cut from almost every federal program or grant or subsidy that was provided to assist people with things like this.
You should not be leaning on assistance. You should be leaning on assisting yourself. You're not a senior citizen. You're not missing an arm or a foot. And you use words like nuance. So you have an education, you have a vocabulary. You should be fine. Miss Single Sister.
To you people up here that's not on Section 8, not on public housing assistance, congratulations, okay? You got it together. You know what I'm saying? You did the dang old thing. You went to school. You got educated. I'm one person that do have education, okay?
The luxury to have such a vernacular and think that you can compete in the workplace should be studied. That the hypocrisy and such, the way you present, lady, you're going to have a really hard time keeping a job. But guess what? You're going to figure it out because you're not going to be able to lean on the government for assistance anymore. You're going to have to learn how to talk. The reason that you talk this way is because you never had to learn to do anything else. The reason you can speak like this and you won't learn proper English and you don't want to be a professional is because you don't have to be. You get to stay home. You get about $300 on average and you stretch it out. Plus you have Section 8 and then whatever you're getting per child. People build entire communities off that little change and they do not work. And that's the reason why she speaks this way. She will shape up once she has to join the workforce and she gets fired and she needs another job. Or if she gets a husband or a man that's willing to marry her, you know, if she can ever even get so lucky, but he's not going to want a woman that talks like this. She talks like, I don't know what year she's from, but in the real world, you can't speak like that or present yourself like that and expect results. You just can't.
Did I graduate high school? I had complications in school? Yes. The answer is yes. Do I have some type of college education?
The hair. The reason you have hair like that is because you don't have a job. You don't have an employer. You don't have responsibilities. And you use your children as a disability. But they're not a disability. They're supposed to be a blessing. That disability does not mean you get to just stay home indefinitely. And that's why she's making this video, because she's going to have to figure it out. Just because you're a mom doesn't mean you don't got to work. If you want to be a single mom, you're going to have to work to support your children. Or you're going to have to go back to one of your baby dads and see if you guys can live together. You're going to have to figure it out. As a woman, you're going to have to find a man willing to let you live with him. You're going to have to repair your families. Living on your own and living off the government, those days are done. You got to figure it out, baby.
Education level, yes, I do. Okay, I want to fast forward to this.
There's no way you're going to be working from home doing all that in front of the fucking camera when you got to deal with customers. That's out. You might as well, you're fired. I'm firing you off the rip.
Does not mean that I ended up making that type of money. You know what I'm saying? With everything going the way that it's going, and I'm not speaking for the Section 8 issue that's going on where he's talking about no more Section 8, no more food stamps and all this.
Yeah, there's not going to be any more, and you can't force it to be.
Other stuff, okay. I want to speak.
And actually, he's not even saying he's getting rid of it. What he's saying is that he's going to give a certain amount of money to the states, and it's going to be up to the states to distribute it. But the states are not going. The states are going to be stricter about where their money goes. There's going to be more oversight. The federal government is too big and bloated, and the Fed cannot watch over each individual state. Technically, each state is its own country under a federal umbrella. The Fed can't micromanage each individual country. That's no. These states are their own countries. They have to micromanage and they have to have their own budgets that have to be balanced themselves. They can't run a deficit. They can't run on a deficit. They have to run on a surplus. They have to legally, they're supposed to balance their budgets every year. Supporting you and your kids is going to throw their budget off balance and that's why certain people only live in certain states. Because only in certain states do you not have to show that you're actively looking for work. They're going to give you your benefits and you can just do it forever. New Orleans is the reason why you see such high poverty. For example, in New Orleans is because they don't have to work They don't have to show that they're trying to find work. They get $300 a month and they can just live indefinitely in Section 8 housing that's paid for by the city. And that's why these hoods have been there for generations and no one is left. And there are still people who have American citizenship living there. But why? This is the land of opportunity. That doesn't make sense. If illegals or people who are fresh, new to the country live over there, that would make sense. You just got here. You talk about white people having a 400-year head start. For an immigrant like myself, black people have a 200-year head start. I don't want to hear the excuses. You're going to have to figure it the fuck out.
On that I do not get Section 8. You know what I'm saying? I'm not on Section 8. You know what I'm saying? I am on public housing assistance, and
that's the same thing. Public housing assistance is what your state calls the when your state is distributing the funds that are from. It's basically the state's version of Section 8. That's all Trump's doing. He's giving, just like he gave the rights for abortions, the decision back to the state. And guess what? If you live in California, that's a different country. If you don't like that, you can actually move to a different country, but you don't need a passport. You can move to a different country / a different state and decide to live somewhere else. You're going to have to figure it out, but the states are going to be less inclined to enable you. They want you to work too because they need to generate a tax revenue. How much tax revenue do people who live off of welfare in Section 8, how much tax revenue do they generate for the city or for the state? Anybody? If anybody can tell me, leave it in the comments. I think it's zero. And that's not going to cut it in the United States.
However, let me clear that up. It took a while before I even applied for public housing assistance because I'm in between jobs like crazy. I've been paying market rent all.
I wonder the fuck why you're in between jobs like crazy. I wonder why. What about you is presentable? You literally have 3 different colors in your head and you're a woman in her 30s with multiple children. You can't talk without doing this with your fingernails in front of a camera, but you're sitting on a nice couch. I don't hear a husband in the background. Maybe he's at work, but I don't think there's a man in the picture. This is going to force women to go back to their husbands and back to their families. Women need men. The only reason why these women said they don't need men is because the state was giving them money. And we can't do that. We can't.
My life before anybody say, yeah, she just saying that because she on public housing assistance and she just doing that because she trying to milk the system for life. No, my goal was not to milk the system for life, but it did help me temporary because I will be moving. Now, let me put this on here. I will be moving back out and back into market rent apartments. Okay, but there are some people.
When you notice that she was about to say when, and she opted out saying when.
Well, everybody ain't just passing through like me. There are some people that cannot afford.
Speak for your fucking self. Don't talk about other people that you're just making up out of thin air. Speak for yourself. Don't talk about imaginary, hypothetical people. Speak for you. We don't want to hear about other people. Yeah, no, talk for yourself.
Like me to move off of Section 8, okay? I know people that got 5+ kids.
Whose fucking fault is that? Do you know how much sex comes to make 5+ kids? That's a lot of fuck. But people talk about Cassie. That's way more sex than Cassie was having. Cassie don't even got 5 kids. So you're doing more fucking than Cassie. God, bro, I can't take it. Then you're going to have to figure it out. Why are we arguing? I don't want to argue. Listen, I'm not your husband. I'm not your husband. I don't want to argue. Let's not. Y'all don't want to see all that neck moving. Take your ass to work.
Yeah. So we're gonna address that 5 kids comment that she made because that's a part of the problem, right? I just want to get credit.
Big part of the problem.
There are a lot of black people who have taken to the internet to express how they support President Trump and what he's doing because they already know, right? Black people know more than anybody else how toxic this program actually is and how this doesn't really benefit us in the long run.
Bro, it is extremely toxic. These women leave their baby dad and take the kids. They leave their husband and destroy the family because the fucking government tells them we'll give you free housing and money if you do it. And the women said, you know what? I'd rather take the free money than have a family. And they leave, bro. We got to get rid of this shit. Bro, this can't. I got a friend of mine right now. He cries every day because out of his 2 kids, one of his sons is taken away from him because the woman is enabled. She knows she loses her benefits if the kid lives with the dad. She don't even like the kid, but the kid is a source of income from him and from the state. Bro, families, no one wants to have kids over here anymore. Why do you think these women are running around with 1 kid? Think about it. A lot of us were born in the 80s, right? Everybody knows you grow up to be a weirdo if you're an only child. I'll put it out there. Unless you got a bunch of cousins, any kids I knew growing up that didn't have a brother or some sisters or at least 2 or 3 siblings, they were weird. Nobody purposely wants to be an only child. So when I see these women walking around with 1 kid, I'm like, oh yeah, whoever the man was that got her pregnant, it was on accident, and he didn't like her enough to give her 2. I know this because I've had women tell me, like, I want to have matching kids, and the guy didn't want to have another kid with me. So I was trying to figure out a way to trick him into having sex with me again. I'm like, having sex with you after you guys are broken up and you took his kid? Why would he do that? She was like, well, he wouldn't. I said, of course. So I'm thinking, you know what? I'm thinking men are not the problem. It's not the men. It's not the men that are the problem. It's the women.
I personally don't agree with a lot of things Trump is saying, but this one specific thing makes sense to me. To all the people that's on Section 8, he is giving y'all 2 years to get on your feet. Trump said stop being dependent and become independent. I agree. I'm not no hating ass bitch. I'm not knocking nobody's situation. But if you really think about it, Section 8 is only to assist you to get on your feet. Section 8 is a stepping stone to get you on your feet. Section 8 is not something you should depend on for the rest of your life. Government assistance is not something you should depend on for the rest of your life. Keyword, assistance, to assist you. Y'all done got too comfortable. Too comfortable. There's people that's been on Section 8 for like 10 plus years.
No. Try 30 years. 30 years. My aunt, she was telling me that this girl she went to high school with is still on Section 8 back in LA. I watched my aunt get up and go to work. She didn't want to be with my uncle. Guess what? She didn't just quit work, get on Section 8, get welfare. No. She went to work. But she sees some of her friends and she's like, that lazy bitch is still on Section 8. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, how old is this lady? She's still on there? There needed to be a cap. But again, every time you go into one of these government assistance programs as a woman, if you have children, the source of the kids, the father, he can't be there. So you have to get rid of him. Destroyed families. So without these families, no wonder the community is fucked. Riddled with violence and crime and just destroyed. Everyone's either in jail or trying to get killed. Bro, it's just too much. Something's got to change. I think, idle hands are the devil's workshop. You know, I have a lot of friends. I have cousins that are in jail right now. You know where that nigga tells me he'd rather be? He said, bro, I'd rather be working at Wendy's right now than sitting in here. And I got about 20 more years, but shit, I would have rather worked at a Jack in the Box for 20 years and get off at a certain time and be able to go home, play video games, and have my freedom. But you don't realize that until it's too late. But a lot of these men were trying to impress these women, so they thought they needed a lot of money. No, you just needed your freedom and a job. With a freedom and a job, you can afford a place and you can stay free and live. Stop trying to run around and impress these women. Because at the end of the day, these women will throw you to the left to get $400 a month from the government and a little bit of housing assistance, and they'll kick you out and take your kids and you won't be able to see them. That's not a life.
That's a long time. Within that amount of time, you should have a lot of money saved up in your bank account, in your savings account. Y'all too busy buying the newest shoes, buying the highest cars, trying to keep up with the trend, buying designer purses.
Bro, having anything designer in your closet while living in Section 8 housing is diabolical. It's pure insanity, bro. I'll be honest, if you're on welfare, or if you're on welfare and you're living in Section 8 housing and you have an iPhone 16 Pro Max, that's insidious. That's like a horror film, in my opinion. Like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. And, but that's the thing. Like, eventually you're going to have to grow up. These programs are for children or for people that are mental or are sick. These are for, but when you enable people like this, you don't let them grow up and become adults. In adults, when you're adulting in the real world, you have to pay bills, you have to struggle, you have to scrape by. If you're scraping by because you just get government assistance and you don't work, that's not you scraping by. That's you choosing a lifestyle. I can see if business is slow and you have to balance out, but if you don't want to work and you're scraping by, then that's a lifestyle choice. That's not happenstance from the economy. But you got to think about it. Aren't these people all Democrats for the most part? No wonder they vote for things that don't make any sense and that actually cost us to lose money. These people, even though they have the right to vote, they're not actually a part of the country. They're not a part of society. They don't even have to, they're insulated from the decisions of their poor voting, poor voting skills. They're insulated. They don't have to pay bills. They get government assistance and government housing. So for them, whoever's the president is just a popularity contest. And the policies don't really mean anything. It's just you do whatever somebody tells you. But once you start working and being an adult, and you have to see what's going on and you start paying attention, nobody's going to be a Democrat anymore, because there's nothing Democrat about you besides welfare. You don't like gays, you don't like trans, you don't like gay kids. Nobody likes gay kids anyway. But all that shit is what the Democrats push. And you go along with it because you want the free money and the free housing in exchange for your freedom. But once you start paying into the economy and you start working and have to pay bills on your own, you're no longer going to consider yourself a Democrat. And I think that's a good thing that Trump's doing. This is how you get rid of Democrats. Once you give people responsibilities who are irresponsible. Matter of fact, when you're 17, you're a Democrat. Once you start working at 18, you turn Republican. You turn conservative because you're like, how much these motherfuckers charging me? So wait a minute, these people over here don't got to work, but I do. Once you go through that, welcome to the other side. But you will never go through that as long as you're being enabled by the government. So listen, I'm gonna stop the video here. Like and subscribe, share the video, Right Wing Rico, or the single boyfriend on all the platforms. That's the brand. If you have some comments, go ahead and leave them. We can talk about it. I'm open to any conversations. We can go over this. But we touched on a lot today. We're gonna do another video coming up shortly about the Megan Thee Stallion situation, the DDG situation. I'll be honest. And then the woman that just got arrested for calling in the fake 911 call, and the rapper ended up dying when he ran from the house. There's a lot of black women in the media, in the news today, and it's a lot of black women doing a lot of evil shit. I don't know if it's a pattern. I don't know if it's seasonal, but we're going to find out. I'll be back shortly with these different topics. Also, we're going to talk about the Derek Chauvin pardoning that's happening. And, we'll go over these different topics. So if you have some comments, like and subscribe and share. If you want to join the conversation, remember to follow the Black Conservative Perspective. This was his video that I was piggybacking on. So, and this girl right here, she's eventually going to get a husband because she has a brain. She has a good head on her shoulder. She can think for herself. She's not a part of the cult. So she'll eventually have a husband, which is good for her. But the rest of them, not so much. So anyway, Right Wing Rico, I'll see you guys shortly. And let's see here. Yeah, I'll see you guys shortly. Thank you. I'll go ahead.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.